So Affinity just released version 1.9.2, and it helped fix a bunch of tiny little glitches and bugs that it needed to get fixed. Most importantly, at least for me, is they fixed the problem that was happening whenever you tried to use imagery from Unsplash in their stock palette. Sure, I could have used Pexels or Pixabay from that stock palette, but I just prefer Unsplash. It's a site I've been dedicated to, I've been loyal to for a long time. I try to give people credit there as much as I possibly can, and I was stoked just to find out that they'd fixed the problem. Almost as if on cue, Unsplash turns around and says they are being purchased by Getty Images, and my heart immediately sank. If you've had any interaction with Getty Images or their subsidiaries, you probably already know what I'm gonna say. But let's go. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dave Connery, and I'm an artist and designer based in Southern California, and man, it is a nice, beautiful day. In fact, it's really weird weather. I know, I'm always talking about the weather. I don't know why, it doesn't. But it's a beautiful day here in Southern California, and if you're having horrible weather wherever you are, I'm sorry. Come hang out. I'll share this with you. We're not here to talk about sunshine and swimming pools. We're here to talk about Unsplash, Getty Images, and if you use any kind of stock imagery within the atmosphere of any Affinity program, how it might affect you too. So just a little background and some history lesson about these sites. Unsplash.com was originally started as a Tumblr blog where people would upload free images for other people to use, and then it became the juggernaut of free, copyright-free imagery that you could use as a creative. Based on their own description, they are the internet source for freely usable images. It basically means that the images are free to use, whether it's for personal use, for business use, for commercial use. You can't resell the images themselves without having some major changes done to them. But if you have a desire to incorporate them into your artwork and use them, like say maybe a collage or put them together, or maybe, share them in an Instagram post and talk about why, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to credit the artist, although I highly recommend it because these people are trying to work for a living too. And based on their own website, says commercial and non-commercial purposes, no permission needed, although attribution is appreciated. Now let's talk about Getty Images. If there was ever a complete antithesis to Unsplash.com, it would be Getty Images. Getty Images are 100% the single most expensive stock imagery resource on the internet. Okay, that last point might be arguable, but if you look at their website, and I'm looking at it right now, mix and match royalty-free images, videos and editorial, one large image, 4K or HD videos, a single image to download is $499. You don't get exclusive rights to that image. That's just your one download. Somebody else could turn around and download it too. Don't get me wrong. Creators should be able to make all the money they want off of that imagery. And if Getty Images had been cooler over the years, I probably wouldn't have much of an issue with them. But they have got a storied history of really going to town on people. Example number one, they purchased iStock Photo, which was another stock imagery, but it was less expensive than going through Getty. I used to use iStock Photo all the time when I was a designer, and this was before some of the other ones came into play, like Shutterstock and whatnot. I would use the photos, I would use the vector images, I would use all kinds of product from there. And after Getty bought them, their prices went through the roof. But being that iStock Photo was the premier service at the time, they had all the best images. Now that's kind of changed a little bit. Creative Market has come along, and Envato has come along, so the choices have gotten a little bit better. You don't have to go to iStock. You don't have to go to Shutterstock. Competition is great. It's great when we have competition, but Getty keeps seeming to buy up all the properties, and so they have control of all the things. And when they have control of all the things, they have a ridiculous amount of power, and that power can be used for bad stuff. The first thing was they used to chase people down all the time for using images out of context or that they hadn't paid for. I get that they should be able to protect their own copyrights, but the way that they would go after people with litigious emails and threats of lawsuits, it was almost as if it was like extortion, to say the least. To maintain copyright law, it says that you must protect your copyrights vigorously. I get it. Getty seems to take that to the nth degree. Getty Images body count when it comes to bloggers destroyed. I don't even want to talk about the numbers because it's so bloody we might get listed as sensitive content. So yes, I have an incredibly biased opinion about Getty Images. Even when they came out, and I think it was 2014 or 15, they came out and they said, hey, you can use our images as long as you use our embed tool, as long as you have our listing at the bottom of that image. You can use that anytime you want. At the time, it was this ridiculously ugly and disruptive watermark that would go right along the middle third of the image. They've since made it a little bit more elegant, but it's still there, and it's like, yeah, okay, we understand, give credit. It's just such a complete foot on the neck of creative people that you would think that they would be able to find a more elegant way to approach it, but they just choose not to, and we have just learned to accept it or not use any imagery whatsoever. If you don't believe me on the extortion aspect, go look up the story about Carol Highsmith. She was a photographer that had donated a bunch of images to the Library of Congress. They were supposed to be public domain. Somehow Getty got it into their own mind that, hey, those are now ours. They belong to us. And so when Carol turns around and tries to share one of her own images on her own website, Getty turns around and tries to extort money out of her, saying, no, those belong to us. Completely oblivious to the fact that they were talking to the person who actually took the photo in the first place. So is Getty Images really the devil? No. I think that they probably are just doing their best to protect their own interest, protect the interest of the people that they're trying to represent, whoever that might be sometimes. But the problem is they're such a huge corporation that they tend to get in their own way sometimes. They no longer think about the opportunity that's available. They only think about their own self-interest. And so now we're here talking about how they're buying Unsplash, and it really gives me pause about what's going to happen next. This announcement's just happened. They haven't talked about how their relationship is going to work yet. Over time, they're going to start rolling out changes. The next thing you know, you're paying for a subscription to get these images that you used to get for free. This is all speculation. I don't exactly know if this is actually going to happen, but I am so used to Getty coming in and just mowing down everything in front of it, like a strip miner trying to find that one nugget of coal. They just have a history of messing with things like that, and I get this feeling that at some point there's going to be a broken relationship between Affinity and Unsplash. Again, total speculation. I'm just anticipating this because of the history. I love Unsplash.com, and I'm super stoked for the guy who started it because that's awesome that they made a bunch of money on that deal. I just think that it's going to end up being a bad deal down the road. We'll see what happens. Maybe some of the photographers will jump ship and they'll move over to one of the other websites, or things won't change at all. Things will be exactly as they are, and maybe Getty, for once, will just say, you know what, we're going to leave this one well enough alone. They're doing okay. Let's just see how this business model plays out for the future. We're not going to touch it. I am definitely not optimistic that that's going to be the case, but Getty could prove me wrong, and I will eat my, hat. Not really. So all this begs the question, what would I do different? How am I going to protect myself from the Getty machine? First thing, document anytime you use something. So when you pull an image off of Unsplash and you use it, put a timestamp on that. Make sure that you know that you used it at this point, at this time, so that you can document when it was used. So that if they do decide to do something crazy and come after you for not giving credit or whatever it was, that you can say, look, I did it before you changed the rules. 2, if you're just using the image as is, not doing any alteration, give credit. 1, you should, because that photographer, they deserve the credit. 2, it's self-preservation. Number 3, especially in my case, because I do a lot of collage type imagery, make sure I do enough alteration to the image so that I'm not just saying, hey, look, I just reproduced this image that I just downloaded off Unsplash, and now I'm going to turn it around to you so you can sell. Enough modification to make sure that I'm still holding true to the nature of the image, but making it my own. Now, these 3 things are not necessary for the current guidelines of Unsplash, and they might not be necessary for the future. Like I said, I don't trust Getty, and I know there's plenty of other people that don't trust them either, so again, it's self-preservation. I'm just protecting myself from the future of whatever could happen that might be bad. But I don't know everything. I would really like to know what you think about this issue. If you have any opinion on this whatsoever, do me a favor, go down to the comments and share them, because let's start a discourse on this particular topic. And while you're headed down there, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, because if you like this content, you should subscribe, but only if you want to see me on a regular basis. And if you do want to see me on a regular basis, hit that bell button, because you never want to miss a thing, right? And then, of course, share it with your homies. And on that note, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys enjoy your Easter weekend. I really appreciate you guys hanging out, but you should be spending your time eating more chocolate and following your kids around while they stumble into bushes looking for eggs. If you do find some time to watch some videos, make sure you check that one out, because that's where I actually did some collage work using imagery that I found from Unsplash. Or if you're at all interested in finding out my perspective on if brands should use print on demand, go go check out that video from my other channel. Thanks again, guys. I really appreciate you. Remember, be good today, be even better tomorrow. Happy Easter and see ya!